and my name is Michael Nobrega. And I'm the chair of the Ontario Centres of Excellence. I want to welcome all of you to Discovery 2014, which I think if you stay over the next 2 days, you will see that it is the showcase of innovation in Canada. It's my great pleasure and privilege to have the Right Honourable David Johnston, the Governor-General of Canada, with us today. Sir, it's a real pleasure to have you. I know you'll speak in a few moments, but I know in your DNA, innovation, research, and education are part of you, and we welcome you here. This is our 9th year as the Discovery, and it has grown, but it has grown thoughtfully, prudently, and carefully. And it has taken many people, many years, and many hours of pro bono work to make this happen. And I would like to point out a few of them, and I wouldn't ask them to stand, but just mention their names. Is Wendy Tilford, Deputy Minister, Ontario Deputy Minister, and Bill Mandel, the Assistant Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Trade, and Employment, and also Ministry of Research and Innovation. I would also like to thank my 2 predecessors, Sean Conway, whom you saw a couple minutes ago, and David McFadden. Both of these gentlemen have been available to me any time in the last couple of years I've been chair and provided any advice that I've sought. But they left me with a great legacy, and that legacy is an outstanding management team that has allowed this thing to grow in a thoughtful way. And I would like now to call to the podium the leader of that team, the President and CEO of Ontario Centres of Excellence, Dr. Tom Corr.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Discovery. Now in our 9th year of celebrating innovation in Ontario, it's amazing to think about how Discovery has evolved and grown over the years. We're proud to say that the number of attendees and exhibitors continues to climb every year, including this year, with well over 2,600 participants plus 425 exhibitors, our largest show ever. And we continue to win top awards for the show, the most recent being the International ISIS Award, when we competed with shows from both the US and Germany. But OCE's main goal every year is to bring you the most exciting and productive Discovery event ever, one that will leave you more informed, more connected, more inspired about the possibilities for the world we live in, more hopeful for the future when seeing the great number of remarkable young entrepreneurs and innovators participating this year, and incredibly more proud after seeing evidence of the many game-changing products and services being developed right here in Ontario. It is truly exciting that this year we're able to share the celebration of innovation in Ontario with today's guest of honor. It is now my very great pleasure and honor to introduce His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor-General of Canada. I say this both as a proud Canadian and someone who is also fortunate enough to be able to call His Excellency a friend. We worked together at the University of Waterloo when he was president and I was the Associate Vice President of Commercialization. It was he, in fact, who enticed me to take on the position at the University of Waterloo. But no sooner had I agreed to join the university when he informed me that I would be put in charge of Waterloo's accelerator because, in his words, after all, he said, everybody at the university has to do at least 2 jobs in order to earn their keep. Thank you. He gave me a great deal of valuable advice during my years at the University of Waterloo and the Accelerator Centre, for which I will always be thankful. The extent of his accomplishments and distinctions are truly remarkable. He became Dean of the Faculty of Law at the University of Western Ontario in 1974. In 1979, he was named Principal and Vice Chancellor of McGill University. In June 1999, he became the 5th President of the University of Waterloo. He holds law degrees from Queen's University, the University of Cambridge, and Harvard University. While at Harvard, he was twice selected for the All-American hockey team and was named to Harvard's Athletic Hall of Fame. He was also the first non-American to chair Harvard's Board of Overseers. The author or co-author of 24 books, he holds honorary doctorates from over 20 universities and is a companion of the Order of Canada. Sworn in on October the 1st, 2010, he is the 28th Governor General since Confederation. I had the privilege of working with him again just prior to him assuming his role as the Governor General, when he served on the Board of Directors of the Ontario Centres of Excellence until the time that he was appointed Governor General. I'd like to add one more personal observation that I believe offers a hint of the true measure of a man I have admired so greatly for many years. I once went to see him at his office at Waterloo, only to find him with stacks of thousands of letters, offers of letters to prospective students. He was writing a personal message on each and every one of the applicants on each of the letters. I believe this is a quality of recognizing the inherent value in each individual and their contribution that has won him such an unprecedented respect and admiration. Ladies and gentlemen, Mesdames et Messieurs, I would now like to invite His Excellency, the Right Honourable David Johnston, Governor General of Canada, to the podium.
Thank you so much, Tom. Michael, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Tom, thanks for that wonderfully warm introduction. You're right about the two jobs. That's just the morning shift. We didn't get a chance to speak about the afternoon shift when some of the other jobs get added. I have so many fond memories of my time on the board of the Ontario Centres of Excellence, not simply because of the fabulous people I worked with, but also because I had such a sense in a relatively short period of time, 2009, 2010, that the best was yet to come. And what I've seen today, of course, in the expression of now my grandchildren, it blows my mind. As a matter of fact, I was with 19 of the finalists in the high school competition, and this could apply to all the young people who are assembled here in this place. And my remark was, never has so much talent been gathered in one place than when Thomas Jefferson dined alone. J'ai voyagé partout au pays et dans le monde en tant que gouverneur général et administrateur d'une université. J'ai vu l'ingéniosité canadienne en action et j'ai découvert des innovations canadiennes qui changent le monde. J'ai vu les Canadiens sur leur meilleur jour qui échangeaient des idées, des connaissances et des pratiques exemplaires. But let me just tell you about my recent trip to the United States last week. I visited California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, Silicon Valley, as well as Seattle. I met with representatives from some of the world's most innovative companies, Quantum, Microsoft, Google, on and on. But what struck me most during that visit was how much of an impact Canadians are having. These tech giants look to Canada on a regular basis because they know that the people here are both talented and creative. Big ideas happen here. That's why, for example, Google set up a global tech hub program in Waterloo, which gives startup companies access to Google's experts and products. And as Tom mentioned a moment ago, we were both part of that wonderful movement in Waterloo County in Canada's Technology Triangle. Just speaking of Waterloo, Canadian schools are also making great strides in innovation. When we were in California, Twitter CEO Dick Costello said that more than 20% of Twitter's interns are from the University of Waterloo alone. And in the last year or two, Cisco, Industrial Light and Magic, Twitter, Square, Google, and numerous others, including Microsoft, have announced new investments or expansions in Canada. And this validates the thesis that Canada produces global talent. But it's not just Canadians helping American companies. American knowledge is also lending a helping hand to Canadians. We visited the Canadian Technology Accelerator located at Rocket Space in San Francisco. We spoke to a handful of Canadian companies. That accelerator gives these businesses access to rocket space expertise and network and the chance to leverage opportunities and gain exposure to the Bay Area's innovation ecosystem. Just one example of the collaborative spirit we've seen, a spirit that's so important to innovation. I raise this point because this conference attracts people from not only across the province, but also investors and innovators from around the world. The successes we achieve as a result of our creative ideas expand exponentially when we work together across borders and across disciplines. There's a great history of collaboration here in Ontario and an equally strong reputation for innovation. I know this because I've seen it. The title of this conference is Discovery, and it's very apt. The discoveries Canadians have made throughout history have changed the course of our country and of our world. Just take the field of communication. Canadians have developed new ways of coming together across vast distances. The first transatlantic wireless transmission took place from Signal Hill, Newfoundland in 1901 and led the way for the telegram, the telephone, radio, and television. That's why we must continue to support discovery in all its forms. I'm grateful to all of you for voicing your support throughout your careers, and I'm especially grateful to organizations like the Ontario Centres of Excellence for providing venues like these to inspire dialogue and action. Vous êtes venus ici afin d'échanger de nouvelles idées, de nouvelles technologies et de nouvelles façons de faire les choses. Vous forgerez des liens, découvrir des possibilités d'investissement et établir des partenariats. Mais au-delà de tout cela, cette conférence se veut une célébration de l'innovation en tant que telle et chacun de vous continuera de trouver des moyens novateurs d'élever notre pays vers des sommets nouveaux et surprenants. I look forward to learning about your continued discoveries and the transformational ideas that will create new opportunities for Ontario and for Canada. Thank you, merci.
The Governor General has graciously accepted asking or answering a few questions from the audience. So if you wouldn't mind, who wish to ask him a question, finding your way to the microphones, he'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Yes, Jerry. Now, why am I nervous?
Your Excellency, excellent speech. Yes. In your 3.5 years as Governor General, and in your capacity of Governor General, you've visited many countries all around the world. You've talked about your recent trip to the western United States, but you've been to Peru, Mongolia, and everyone in between. And on your agenda in all these countries, you always take time to visit a university or a research center to discuss innovation, research, and commercialization. From this sort of unique perspective, what do you think are the elements of the global best practices for innovation and commercialization? And what, as we as Canada in general and Ontario in particular, what are we doing great, and what could we be just a little bit more effective in?
Well, thank you for that question. Jerry Sullivan is one of my heroes. Jerry's a chemical engineer, professor from Waterloo who became an entrepreneur and, among other things, ran our Accelerator Center in the very early days when it was just a gleam in our eye, and ran it fantastically. And Tom came along some years later and ran it beautifully as well. First of all, I guess innovation is an ecosystem, Jerry, and I quote a very learned gentleman who once said to me, it's not push and it's not pull. Yes, it's clearly not just from basic science to experiment to application to commercialization. It's at least back and forth on that road, but it's very messy. It's more than push and pull. It's a constant dynamic system where elements are coming from other places. It's also messy, and it can't be done top down. My friend Jerry Sullivan would say it's best done if you engender an ecosystem where ideas are constantly bubbling up. And so I would say in the innovation ecosystems that I visited around the world, each one is a little different, each with its own flavor. But what stands at the heart of it is that bubbling up of talent, that uncontained exuberance. In California, Silicon Valley, people are always trying to analyze that, and there are probably 7 or 8 elements, and you don't get them all. But one is it's a magnet for the best talent from around the world. And the reason for that is very strong universities, both public and private universities. Bob Bergeneau, former president of the University of Toronto, later chancellor of Berkeley, I was with Bob, a week ago, speaking and commenting, saying exactly that if you listed the top 20 universities in the world, probably 4 of them are in California. Bob held up 6 fingers, 6. And they're both public and private. So that's clearly an important ingredient. But, it's creating that atmosphere where ideas move very quickly. We were in China and Mongolia about 7 or 8 months ago. I've been to China many times, but never to Mongolia. I learned more about Genghis Khan. I had studied him in my history as a conquistador that moved out of Mongolia, conquered China, came all the way to Europe, and he stopped at Vienna because Western Europe in the 12th century, 13th century was a backwater. There was nothing worth plundering, so he stopped. But what he did was he didn't destroy empires that he conquered. He left their religions, their languages, their cultures, and trade in place. And following him, there was a great circulation of ideas. So much so that some scholars believe Genghis Khan was responsible for taking Europe out of the back ages and introducing what became the Industrial Revolution and causing it to pass those older civilizations that had been much more prosperous of India, Islam, and China. And the scholars that write this say there are 4 things that came in the wake of Genghis Khan and the exchange of ideas. One was the stirrup. You have to think about that a little bit. The second was gunpowder. The third was the compass, and the fourth was printing press. So, Jerry, I think the key is you create an atmosphere where ideas put into practical use can occur very quickly. What do we well? We have I think the most accessible public education system in the world, a great Canadian triumph. And our challenge is to have equality of opportunity and excellence too, to see those as not conflicting but mutually reinforcing objectives. Our danger is complacency. We live in a very comfortable country, in a very comfortable place, and it's new immigrants that bring energy to us, and thank heavens we have that, but I think all of us have to be conscious of not being complacent and continuing to create that ecosystem where ideas circulate very frequently, but where there is a drive to take those ideas and put them into practical purposes, both goods and services. Bear in mind, innovation is not the idea. Innovation is taking an existing idea, or maybe a relatively new idea, and applying it to existing things to do them differently and better. Other questions?
Hey there, my name is Thomas Price. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Waterloo's Knowledge Integration Program. I'm currently a student in the Next 36. My question for you is around the innovation that's bubbling up within Canada and the ability for ideas to move. My experience is that ideas move down to the United States. And when we talk about the quality of opportunities here within Canada, I'm hoping you can speak a bit more about the development of innovation past the ideation phase into practice within Canada rather than within the United States.
Well, the first thing I would say is I'm always anxious not to create an either-or, but a both-and syndrome. It's not a bad idea for your ideas to circulate around the world, particularly if some of them stay here, and particularly if some of them come back in a different and enhanced form. So I don't worry much about brain drain. I worry about creating a talent base, and I think those brains should go wherever they will be best challenged in the world. I guess the opportunity we have in Canada is to create the conditions where some of them will stay and some of them will come back. I think our greatest dilemma is that financing is so much more possible in the United States. And I think gradually we're seeing a change in that, although not as quickly as I would like. I also think we're seeing more of those ecosystems occur. You've lived through one in Waterloo 30 years ago. it was a very different place. 10 years ago, it was a very different place, and we're seeing that across the country. So that's very helpful. But I think the most important thing is those of you who've had the benefit of a Canadian education, some of whom will go and make your fortunes elsewhere in the world, to see yourself as ambassadors for Canada and to continue to make the link back. And some of you, especially when you reach the stage where you're starting a family or raising a family, will come to understand what an extraordinary place Canada is to raise a family, and will return. So I think it's a work in progress, and I would say that financing is our #1 issue, but I do think that we're seeing some promising signs on that front. Question here?
Bonjour, merci beaucoup. Thanks very much. What I'd like to know is, so to give you my background, we're doing a solar startup in Tanzania, and we recently got back from an accelerator program in Seattle, actually. Social enterprise is helping a lot of people all over the world, and it's doing so by doing good business and also by doing good. What can we do here in Ontario to promote social enterprise? We had to go abroad to get the assistance, get the capital to make this a reality. So my question to you is, how do we make this happen here in Ontario? Merci beaucoup.
Well, #1, to see social innovation as just as important as technological innovation, and very often the two come together. #2, I think to take a leaf from your book, you said that you were involved in solar in Tanzania. How exciting it is to go and be in a different country, in a different culture, to innovate, to make things better. I've seen it with my own children. We have 5 daughters, and at age 12, they began international exchanges. Now been to 30 or so countries, and what I saw in them causes me to say that if I had one wish for every Canadian university and college student, it would be to spend a year abroad in a practical work situation, either for a for-profit organization or for a not-for-profit and volunteer, or an academic institution, more than just traveling, preferably in a language other than your own, because it helps your mind to grow. With my children, I think 3 things I've observed in them, the best part of their education. One is, I guess they had a natural curiosity, but every child does. Every child is always asking why, and parents say, don't ask anymore. They should say, ask more. They had a curiosity for the difference, and that was accentuated by visits to other cultures, so that it enhanced their natural curiosity and enhanced their critical thinking, that they would ask those questions. The second thing that happened to them is their basis of judgment and the avoidance of stigma and the avoidance of preconceived ideas disappeared, because they looked at things from 2 different angles. They would see it through the lens of another culture. And thirdly, they just became wiser. Normally, life experience teaches wisdom. You learn to make judgments based on a variety of past experiences. When you have experiences in different cultures, then I think that wisdom is enhanced. And I would say the same is true of social innovation. A great stimulus to that is being able to deal with the different, with the other, and see it not as a stranger, but as a friend. I think we're seeing a lot of interesting developments in social innovation. During my time at Waterloo, for example, we developed SIG, Social Innovation Generation, led by Florence Wesley. We're seeing very interesting advances in social capital, applying traditional capital-raising methods to social innovation. Increasingly, governments, particularly at the provincial and the local level, are using social innovation, and our non-governmental sector is as well. I'll just finish by saying, in my installation address as Governor General, I spoke about a smart and caring nation, a call to service, with 3 pillars: family and children, learning and innovation, philanthropy and volunteerism. And I see those themes which we've emphasized in our work coming together: smart and caring nation and social innovation. My dream for Canada would be that all of us would embrace that notion of being smart and caring as part of the DNA that makes Canada. And of course, that would be constantly innovating to improve the situation of our neighbors and our citizens right across the country. Other questions? Okay, one more.
Yeah, merci beaucoup.
Oui.
I'd like to have your view concerning the upcoming free trade agreement with Europe, and also the fact that Canada is negotiating with around 60 countries at the time. So how will this impact our institutions, good or bad? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. The interesting thing about this job is it's not involved in politics, so I can't comment on very specific matters. The European Free Trade Agreement, I suppose I can because it's now at least a treaty now being ratified. What I'd say in the broader context, though, is that I do believe that the circulation of ideas that we see through trade and other exchanges are very, very propitious for healthy communities. And I'd simply cite Genghis Khan again, that, you know, that what that interesting person did, and one could point to others in history, is they created a climate where it was easy for ideas to move from one place to another. And both the giving and the receiving parties benefit from that lack of barriers from using the new ideas. And therefore, free trade, and there are cases where you need some protection, at least for a period of time, I think is very beneficial, but especially the free trade in ideas. I guess I just end with a statement of one of my favorite bumper stickers, reads, minds like parachutes work best when open. Thanks, Tom, very much.
Merci.
On behalf of everyone here, I want to thank Your Excellency for making the time to be with us today and for bringing such a compelling and uplifting message to the opening of Discovery. Again, thank you for being part of Discovery.